Greetings, salutations, and lava! It's your host, John F. Allen, and also known as the Original Media Man. Today's video, I'm going to run down my top favorite rock bands. Now, this is my favorite bands. These are my favorite bands. These are not the top bands I think deserve a spot in terms of their musical talent or notoriety. These are my favorites from a personal and nostalgic perspective. Let me first say I'm 55 years old, so the rock bands that I like the most are going to be coming out of the 70s and 80s. So probably mid 70s, mid to late 70s, and on into the mid 80s. That was my hot spot when I was listening and starting to appreciate music and learning to like what I like. So I'm going to run them down from 1 to 10. And before I go over the first band, something you need to know about me. This band is my all-time favorite band, tied with one other band that's not rock, which that other band is Earth, Wind, and Fire. But anybody who knows me knows that these two bands, Earth, Wind, and Fire, and this one, are my top favorite bands of all time, hands down. I can listen to their music over and over and over again, never get tired, always feeling something that's inspiring or empowering or chill. I just get all the feels when I listen to these bands. But with the rock category, my favorite band, number one of all time, Queen. So anybody who's my age or older knows all about Queen. Younger folks might have heard of them. Maybe they were introduced to them via the Bohemian Rhapsody film. But I grew up listening to these guys, and I mean, they're phenomenal. So you've got hits like Another One Bites the Dust, We Are the Champions, Bohemian Rhapsody, which is an all-time favorite, Princes of the Universe, We Will Rock You. The list goes on and on. And younger viewers of these videos that I make, you probably heard their music in like commercials or something, and you maybe didn't know who they were. But that's Queen. Queen is number one. Number two, Duran Duran. So I know that they're more of a pop band and more of a hair band from the 80s. But they're another band whose music I never grow tired of listening to. And I always feel good when I listen to their music. And that's why they are number two. Now, one of the things about Duran Duran is when they started to gain popularity and a lot of their songs started to come out, I was in middle school and high school. So these were formative times. So that's why I'm saying these are my favorite rock bands, nostalgia. Now, granted, they weren't known for their musicianship in terms of instrumentation. It was more Simon Le Bon's vocals and then them accompanying. I know the difference between a band and a group, but I'm putting them in this category because of what they mean to me. So, Kevin Hearn, a buddy of mine, teases me about stuff, so I had to throw that in there. With Duran Duran, you've got hits like Rio, Hungry Like the Wolf, Save a Prayer. The list goes on and on. Their music has been sampled in the hip hop world. over and over again. They are really legendary when it comes to the music, and that's why they are number two. Number three, Journey. Journey is a band that touched me emotionally with their songs. And they're a rock band, but when you listen to Steve Perry's voice, you're hearing the influence of Sam Cooke, who was a crooner, a soul crooner back in the late 50s and through the 60s before his untimely passing. So that influence right there with the vocals, and then you've got the music in the background. It's just a great combination for me. It's something that I really enjoy listening to. The songs, Don't Stop Believing, of course, is one of their most popular songs. I mean, it's been played everywhere. Who's Crying Now, Open Arms, the list goes on, and that could have been a pun, but fans of Journey will probably catch that. I didn't even think about it when I said that, but that's you'll understand. Coming in at number 4, The Police. So let's just start with Roxanne, that has that reggae feel to it, and then the indisputable vocals of Sting. And you just can't go wrong with this band. I mean, they have been around since, well, they formed in the 60s, but they didn't gain any popularity until the 70s, mid to late 70s, and then into the 80s. But Sting is a phenomenal vocalist. I even own his stuff when he left the band. But them as a group really, I mean, what can you say? I mean, you've got Every Breath You Take, that song has been used over and over and over and over again. Like Roxanne, if you've ever seen 48 Hours and you've seen Eddie Murphy sing Roxanne, it's funny, it's hilarious. Younger people, if you haven't seen that movie, go check it out. But you've got so much rich vocalization from Sting, and you've got the musicality. You can't go wrong with The Police. So, coming in at number 5, Steely Dan. Steely Dan came into popularity mostly in the 70s. There's some carryover into the early 80s, but mostly the 70s. Reeling in the Years, one of my favorite songs. Not on that particular album, but you've got Deacon Blues, Asia, Black Cow, Peg, Berkey, Don't Lose That Number. You just so much. Donald Fagen, he made that group, and even when he went on to do solo projects or whatnot, it just really captured me as a young kid. Hearing them, I just really fell in love with their music. So, coming in at number 6, Styx. Now, I know that rhymes. I did not mean for that to happen, but it just happens. So one of the things to know about Styx is they came into my purview when I was 10 years old. Now, they had been around before then, and I heard their music and really didn't know who they were. But a buddy of mine in school, his father was really into Styx, so he was into Styx, and so he kind of introduced me to them as a group. And Paradise Theater was the first album from them that I had when I was a kid. And Too Much Time on My Hands, Mr. Roboto, The Best of Times. You can't go wrong with Styx. Now, they're not a real hard rock band. Some might even classify them as soft rock, although I think they're the bridge between the two. And I think they do a good job of being that bridge. And, some of their songs really are heartfelt ballads, and then others are, you're rocking to it, So you get a little bit of both sides of the rock coin, as it were. So I highly recommend Styx. Let's see where we're at here. Coming in at number 7, Blondie. So, like most young men my age and older, we saw Deborah Harry and was like, "Ooh, she's pretty." And then we thought, wow, I love the music, Heart of Glass, Rapture, those songs are endearing. She also has a song where she raps Fab Five Freddy. So it was like a little hip hop crossover, hip hop was starting to emerge like in the late 70s. And so a lot of hip hop was using disco and rock and roll music to sample, and some of the rock bands were actually doing little snippets of like rapping on their albums, and it's kind of like trying to bridge the gap or whatnot. So you saw a little bit of that crossover there in the late 70s and early 80s. Another hip hop group and band that did that very well was Run DMC and Aerosmith, Walk This Way. So if anybody's familiar with that, that's like almost a perfect blending of hip hop and rock music. And a lot of genres, whether it be hip hop or whether it be jazz, have the fusion with rock, and it comes out so much better on the other end, in my opinion. So I think that when this happens throughout music history, you're going to really get a treat. Next band, this is number 8, Cars. So the Cars really were one of my bands that I like to listen to, like their videos. Magic, You Might Think, Hello Again. Hello Again was really one of my favorites when I was a kid. It's just that boom, 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 boom. Hello again. So, with that being said, the Cars were really fun to listen to. Had a lot of and younger people, you've heard their music on commercials and advertisements, that they're very popular. All the retro music, the stuff that came out when I remember when it came out, is now being used in commercials and advertising and stuff like that. So The Cars were a really good group, a really good band. I really enjoyed listening to. Number 9, Supertramp. So, you've heard a lot of their music. My favorite song from them is the Logical Song, which is on this album, um, Breakfast in America. And Logical Song had a lot of meaning. I didn't really understand it when it first came out because I was younger. I just knew I liked the beat and I liked the vocals. But during the latter part of the 80s, this is when I would re-listen to that, and it was like clicking with me, like in real sense, clicking with me about what the lyrics meant, because I was starting to get into that age where I was living those lyrics. And that's one of the things that makes this band and that particular song endearing. And then Goodbye Stranger, the music for Goodbye Stranger, I don't know, it's that piano riff that it just got me. It just, for some reason when I hear it, I think of something that's very clean. I don't know why. I have synesthesia, so sometimes colors have flavors and sounds have colors, and sometimes sounds have taste. It's really weird. But, I didn't tell anybody when I was a little kid because they think I was crazy. And then as I got older, I realized this is actually a condition people have. Stevie Wonder has it, Billy Joel has it, I have it, other people do. So, I'm not ashamed of it anymore. Coming in at number 10, Van Halen. So, Eddie Van Halen had an illustrious career. He was part of this mega rock band, but also he was one of the greatest guitar players in history of rock. And he appeared on Michael Jackson's Thriller. And this group had many hits. Just Jump was like probably the most popular one. Hot for Teacher, let's see, Panama, Drop Dead Legs, 1984, which is the title of this album. And David Lee Roth as the front man and lead singer. Sammy Hagar was a singer with this band too, but David Lee Roth was so flamboyant and over the top, and then you see the videos, and then it was just like he was the epitome of the hair band, the rocker, the wild child ladies man of the 80s. And it's just like he was just like the poster child. And you see these guys jumping up on the stage and with the guitars in their hands and doing splits in the air and splits coming down and all that, something they can't do anymore. Yes, it was a different time. If you weren't around in the 80s and you didn't see all of this, it was a bit different. A lot of the bands today don't really have quite the showmanship that these bands had, specifically Van Halen, but times change, people change, music's changing, etc., etc. So that wraps up my top 10 favorite rock bands. If you're watching this video, please like the video if you liked it and click to subscribe. And in the comments, let me know what your top 10 favorite rock bands of all time were. Again, I'm 55 years old, so I'm going to be taking from the mid to late 70s into the early to mid 80s. And people who are older than me are going to reach back into the 60s. That's not to say that I don't have 60s bands in my top 20. I do. Even though I wasn't alive in that decade, I still remember listening to that music as a young child because it was still being played on the radio, specifically like the Beatles. So whatever your top 10 favorites, and this doesn't mean that they're the best musically, just means that in your opinion that your favorites, the ones you listen to most often, the ones whose music touches you the most. Drop your top 10 in the comments section, and again, like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the next video. Peace.